I welcome delegates. Dear delegates, the draft agenda of this meeting has been circulated. Could you move into the first point of the agenda and adopt it? I would like to ask you to adopt the agenda. Thank you. A few words about the program. We have a busy agenda this afternoon. First, we will hear from Mr. Robert Williams, reporter of the committee, on his ideas and attentions regarding his report for the 23rd annual session in Baku. This will be followed by a debate. Next, there will be a presentation by Ambassador Olga Algayerova, Chair of the OSCE Committee in the Environmental Committee and the permanent representative of the Slovak Republic to the OSCE. This will also be followed by a debate. Then there will be a presentation by Dr. Khalil Yurdakul Eidguden, coordinator of OSCE Economic and Environmental Activity. Again, this will be followed by a debate. Finally, Dr. Eidguden will speak to us again to introduce a special debate on cooperation in water management in the OSCE area. Before giving the floor to Mr. Williams, please allow me to introduce our reporter, Mr. Roger Williams. Is a member of the United Kingdom's House of Commons with a long-standing interest in rural efforts, having been president of his local branch of the National Unions of Farmers, a member of the Development Board for Rural Wealth prior to his election on SN members of in 2001. He was also chair of Beacons National Park, in addition to serving as his party's shadow rural efforts spokesman. Now I would like to give the floor to our reporter, Mr. Roger Williams, to give us some ideas and attentions concerning his report for the incoming annual session in Baku. You have the floor, Mr. Williams.
Thank you, Madam Chairman, for that kind introduction. Madam Chairman, delegates, I've prepared a few initial thoughts for my report, but more importantly, I'm here to listen to the debate and pick up the themes and interests that you have, and will do my best to include them in that report. The importance of the economic and environmental dimension of the work of the OSCE has increased in importance and become more relevant as we face the challenges of financial crises, energy issues, pollution, food security, water security, and climate change. Nations realize that these challenges can only be properly addressed through cooperation. Individual nations' efforts benefit from the synergy of working together. Stability and security depend upon the identification of common causes and pursuing them. The Helsinki Plus 40 stresses the need for the OSCE to readjust its overall security strategy to the new security environment. Beyond anything else, Helsinki Plus 40 stresses the need for greater transparency and accountability and consensus to prevail in the work that the OSCE must seek to promote. Moderate improvement seen in the global economy has been patchy, and even where the recovery has been strongest, it remains fragile. Many citizens still suffer from global recession. Austerity has had the detrimental effect on people's lives through unemployment, falling living standards, and a reduction in public services. But austerity must not be seen as an end in itself, but as a way to achieve a more sustainable, growing economy benefiting all its citizens. The main cause of recession was the failure of large national and international financial institutions through poor governance. Nations must be encouraged to adopt regulation that limits risk-based speculation, but enables financial bodies to provide capital for investment to restart national economies through the improvements in infrastructure and long-term projects. The OSCE has a role in coordinating national governments to move from retrenchment into solid investments which will provide foundations for a sound improvement in the global economy. Water, energy and food issues, which are closely interrelated, have significant implications for security and stability within states, as well as across borders. At the same time, these issues can be further explored as opportunities for conflict prevention and confidence building. What role should the OSCE play in addressing water, energy, food nexus from a stability and security perspective? The availability and affordability of life's necessities are keys to a prosperous and cohesive community. Nation-states are facing increasing challenges to ensure that water and food are available and affordable for their citizens. These challenges arise because of the increase of the global population to an estimated 9.2 billion by 2050, as well as increased price volatility for foodstuffs caused by severe weather events and climate change. A planned response to these problems will necessitate nation-states working together across a wide range of policies. This will result in greater resilience than nations investing on their own. And there's an obvious role for the OSCE and our committee to facilitate that cooperation. I'll put forward a number of areas of work for discussion. The broad aim will be to promote sustainable intensification, as outlined in the Foresight report on the future of food and farming produced by Professor Sir John Beddington, with comprehensive international contributions. The term sustainable intensification implies producing more food with less inputs, while protecting natural capitals such as soil, water, biodiversity, and ecosystems. Climate change brings with it more uncertainty. More extreme weather events, coupled with an increase in temperature and changes in rainfall, make it difficult to predict agricultural productivity and availability of water. I will bring forward a number of matters where I believe the OSCE can make real the aspiration expressed in the 1975 Helsinki Final Act, that efforts to develop cooperation in the fields of trade, industry, science and technology, the environment and other areas of economic activity contribute to the reinforcement of peace and security in Europe, in the world as a whole. The following three main developments, the establishment, well, first of all, the establishment in 1992 of the Economic Forum, renamed the Economic Environmental Forum in 2006. Secondly, the creation in 1997 of the post of the coordinator of the OSCE economic and environmental activities. And thirdly, established in 2001, the Economic and Environment Committee of the Permanent Council. These structures can be used to bring real improvements in water and food security for the benefits of citizens. A significant increase in agriculture and fisheries production could be achieved by the adoption of best practice. The OSCE can facilitate that technology and knowledge transfer, particularly by using mobile phone and web-based technologies. New research on crop and animal production needs to be done to produce new varieties, improve husbandry techniques, and optimize water usage in agriculture. OSCE countries can cooperate to ensure that no duplication takes place of research effort and synergy is maximized. OSCE countries should encourage young people to study agricultural science by facilitating transnational courses. It's essential that there is a better understanding of the greenhouse gas emissions in different food production systems to find ways to reduce them. The emissions of greenhouse gases are higher in meat and dairy production, and as global prosperity increases, so the demand for these foods increase. The role of women in agriculture is often relegated to menial and unprofitable activities. They often suffer from a lack of education and a lack of funds to invest in new technologies and inputs such as fertilizers. Small holdings often lack the modern farming techniques and lead to poverty and deprivation. Extension services must be set up to bring more productive systems to small holdings and particularly to women working on them. Small holdings often suffer from a lack of secure land tenure, and it's important to establish this tenure if investment is to be made. Excessive water abstraction can have very negative effects on ecosystems, but also on communities and nations that depend upon the same water catchment areas. The OSCE has used its good offices to settle disputes between nations, and this work continues. Demand for water increases for personal use, agricultural, irrigation and manufacturing. The days of cheap water that can be used without limit are over. Water must be treated and reused and recycled. Sewage that has in the past been thought of as a waste must be treated to produce energy, clean water and important nutrients. Climate knows no boundaries or frontiers. What we do in our own country affects every other nation on earth. Every nation has to take its responsibility, but that determination is made much more powerful through cooperation. Energy security is essential to allow communities and nations to achieve economic growth and stability. Building of confidence will enable trade in fuels involving both governments and the private sector. Green or sustainable energy generation will grow as a proportion of the energy mix and will create jobs while reducing carbon emissions. The OSCE has a role to play in sharing the developing technologies. Work must be done to encourage participating states to translate the 2012 Dublin Ministerial Declaration on strengthening good governance and combating corruption, money laundering and financing of terrorism and put that in place with more effective policies, legal frameworks and regulations at a national and regional level. Economic migration and migration due to environmental change are growing factors in maintaining stability and security. Migration can provide opportunities for people to improve their lives while building the economies of the country that receive them. But unplanned and excessive movements can cause tensions and adversely affect the provision of public services. OSCE needs to work on migration management to increase the benefits and reduce the potential negative implications. The OSCE must work for a strategy to ensure that all citizens, regardless of gender, race or family background, have access to a full range of education, training and health services. It's only through social mobility that the full potential of individuals and nations can be achieved. The second dimension covers so much ground and includes and touches every citizen. During this year, we must work together to find concrete actions that will enable the OSCE to promote our shared objectives. I will listen carefully to the debate and will take the ideas forward with the intention of including them in my report for the June meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. We now have a debate on the presentation by Mr. Williams. Three committee members have asked to speak. Other delegates who wish to speak should give their names to the committee staff. Each delegate will have the floor for a maximum of 5 minutes. I give the floor Mr. Krams from Canada.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair and my colleagues, I'm very, very pleased to be here today to discuss a range of timely and critical issues. One issue that is important, at least, well, actually for all countries, is the security of the border that they share with one or more countries. Of course, in Canada, it's a single border, whereas, of course, multiple in the EU. In that context, I would like to speak briefly about border security in relation to the border that my country, Canada, shares with its largest trading and economic partner, the United States. My views about the issue are influenced, at least in part, by my role as Chair of the House of Commons Standing Committee on Public Safety and National Security, and by my past service as a member of the Ontario Provincial Police. With that context, let me begin by indicating that immediately following the terrorist attacks in the United States on September the 11th, 2001, the flow of goods and people at the border between Canada and the United States was, for all practical purposes, halted. And it was some months before anything approaching a normal flow was restored. Completely critical because at that point, over $1 billion a day in trade crossed that border. As such, I think that one of the lessons that both countries learned very quickly was that those cross-border flows are absolutely critical to the prosperity of both countries, as it would be as well in the EU. But that those flows must always occur in a way that must be characterized by a high level of safety and security. By September of that year, our government and the United States had concluded a Smart Border Action Plan, which comprised a range of actions designed to create a secure and a smart border that ensures a secure flow of people and goods, secure infrastructure, and the proper sharing of relevant information. To a large extent, these same basic themes, ensuring that low and no-risk people and goods can cross the shared border in a cost-effective and timely manner, the border infrastructure is adequate and adequately staffed as well as secure, and that the proper people are sharing the proper information at the proper time. They're all reflected in some of the main elements of the Declaration of a Shared Vision for Security, of course, announced by Prime Minister Harper and by U.S. President Obama in 2011. A key element of the Declaration is in the Beyond the Border Action Plan has key pillars: addressing threats early, trade facilitation, economic growth and jobs, cross-border law enforcement, critical infrastructure, and cybersecurity. Certainly in the aftermath of the terrorist attacks, we gained a new appreciation for the foundation links between security and trade, with the full realization that the two notions are not mutually exclusive, but instead are reinforcing. I think that increasingly Canada and the U.S. realize that the two countries are an economically production bloc that makes things happen together and trade with the rest of the world, similar, of course, to the EU. The competitiveness of a production bloc can be helped or hindered by the shared border, and a thick border can be viewed as a self-imposed penalty that increases cost and harms competitiveness. Within that context, it's very important that people and goods are able to move as freely and cost-effectively as possible across a shared border that is secure. That is the shared goal that is common to other countries as well. So with that, let me close by saying that I'm very much looking forward to the discussions and see if there are a number of best practices that we can share and certainly problems that we can work together to overcome. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Kranz. Next floor, Mr. Ibrahimov from Azerbaijan.
Благодарю вас, уважаемый председатель, уважаемые коллеги. Я, во-первых, благодарю уважаемого докладчика за всесторонний доклад. Доклад очень актуальный. Я полностью поддерживаю доклад. А мне остается только от имени делегации парламента Азербайджанской Республики выразить искреннюю признательность руководству ОБСЕ за решение и принятую о проведении летней сессии организации в столице нашей республики в городе Баку. Парламент и общество нашей страны приложат все усилия для организации и проведения этой сессии на высшем уровне. Думаю, что участники сессии будут иметь возможность лично убедиться в гостеприимстве и толерантности нашего народа, а также познакомиться и насладиться достопримечательностями нашей страны. Я приглашаю всех принять участие на летней сессии ОБСЕ и обращаюсь к вам до встречи в Баку. Спасибо вам.
Thank you, Mr. Ibrahimov. Next floor, Mr. Juhul from Demak.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much to Mr. Williams for interesting problems, and I think there are two more interesting problems we have to discuss on the way to Baku. The crisis since 2008 have shown us some big troubles in the different systems. At least the market economy is not able to solve all the crises. The main question is privatization helping us or damaging our society? I think we have to take very much care when we privatize in crisis years, especially health, nature, infrastructure, water, electricity. All these things we need for a good and efficient society and a good welfare state. If we privatize them, we don't necessarily have them for our people in the countries because they can be destroyed of private enterprises. I think we have to discuss how to, in common, take care of all these important things in the societies. And I think they have to go out of the private investments. And I have to say also, when we discuss all these things about economical growth, I think there is a discrepancy between economical growth and sustainable development. And we who live in the part of the world where we have more money than in other parts of the world, we have to be sure that we do the things so that we use less as possible when we develop our countries, because our grandchildren is also have to have some of the parts of this beautiful earth. That's the one question. And the meeting in Baku is taking part in the middle of a very new time. I think of the decision we made about Arctic. And I hope we can discuss of environmental questions. When we now is going to use this new part of the globe, there are two principles who could be important, especially in this fellowship of OSCE, that can we build up a nuclear-free zone from the beginning before we travel from east to west and west to east? And can we also promise each other that the Arctic is going to be army-free, military-free zone? That could be two very, very important steps on the way to realize the dreams of OSCE. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Juhul. Next floor, Mr. Abela from Malta.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I also thank Mr. Roger Williams for his report. And in addition to the remarks on pages 5 and 6 of the report, I would also like to point out some points to the issue of migration, especially migration in the Mediterranean. It is sad to note that hundreds of migrants lost their lives when they tried to cross from North Africa to Europe between Lampedusa and Malta last year. This fact made news, of course, but the problem is still there. Malta and Italy are doing their utmost in saving lives, but this should be a European concern first and foremost, and not only a Maltese and Italian issue. During 2004, this current year, both Greece and Italy will have the presidency of the European Union, and the issue of migration will be on the agenda. Today, The Greek president is in Malta for a 2-day state visit, and of course migration is one of the topics on the agenda as well. Last December, the European Council agreed on a number of recommendations to be put in practice to help those countries which are the most hit by this phenomena of migration, but also to help the migrants themselves, who, while seeking a better future, are risking their own lives. The OSCE should follow this issue of migration in the Mediterranean and the developments in the European Union. Both the EU and the OSCE must strive to have a migration policy and actively work to put it into practice, of course, each according to their own responsibilities. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Abela. If there is no more speakers, now I will give the floor back to Mr. Williams for comments.
Thank you, Madam Chairman, and thanks for the contributions that have been made from the floor today. I found them very helpful. First of all, Mr. Cramp from Canada and his contribution to the debate, emphasizing the need to keep borders open for trade. And we all know that prosperity and security depends upon trade, and I think he's made a very powerful case there. Particularly keeping borders open at times of crisis and of disruption. Thank you, Mr. Ibrahimov, for your kind words, and we look forward to that welcome when we come to Azerbaijan and Baku. Mr. Jewell from Denmark made a point of whether privatization was the correct form for supplying vital services to citizens like water, like electricity and other energy. I think that's something that almost every nation is wrestling with in its own way. And he also made the point that economic growth should be based on sustainable development and ensuring that natural capital is not diminished in our rush for wealth. He also made the point about the Arctic, which I think is very important as well, keeping it a military-free zone. But also, I think it's the importance about ensuring that if there's any exploitation of the Arctic, that is done without pollution and without spoiling the special qualities that we value in that area. And Mr. Abela from Malta spoke with great passion about migration in the Mediterranean and the loss of life between North Africa and Malta and Italy in particular. And he asked that those countries that are receiving the most migrants receive help themselves in order to accommodate the migration, but also to help the migrants themselves. I'd like to thank all the people who spoke for their contributions, and I will do my very best to ensure that they're included in the report. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. I welcome Ambassador Algarayeva. Before giving for her the floor, I would like to introduce her. As you know, Ambassador Algarayeva is a permanent representative of the Slovak Republic to the International Organization in Vienna and the chair of the OSCE Economic and Environmental Committee. Prior to joining to Slovak Foreign Minister in 2012, she worked in the export industry and acted as an advisor to the Prime Minister's office. She is chair of Slovak Millennium Development Goals, a network of public and the private sector professionals who work with a range of border spanning, international aid, diplomacy and academia with the goal of achieving environmentally sustainable economic development. Now you have the floor, Ambassador, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, Mr. Rapporteur, Excellencies, dear members of the parliaments of the OEC area, dear colleagues. It's my honor to address the 13th winter meeting of the OEC Parliamentary Assembly as the chair of the Economic and Environmental Committee of the OEC, continuously already in the second year. I'm convinced that our organization has valuable position for wealth and security of our citizens, and we cannot avoid our common endeavor within the economic and environmental dimension. All three chairs of the OEC committees, we have had a lovely discussion with the President Krivokapit just before this meeting, and I see that the area and issues related to economy and environment have great potential to be seen as a base for building further confidence and growth in the OEC region. Our citizens are the ones who value or may practically feel our work, and I'm convinced that we have together a great potential which might be further developed, but must be target-oriented on targets mirroring challenges of the 21st century. Last year, we devoted our work when coping with and raising awareness on issues such as energy security, energy efficiency, environmental protection, fight against corruption, sustainable development, with the only aim to ensure economic, social, and environmental stability and prosperity. Despite certain significant progress achieved, further dialogue might be welcomed in order to pursue our common aims and goals. My intention is to have pragmatic solutions, reliable goals, visible and tangible results. And of course, topics which have real added value and are relevant nowadays. Two Ministerial Council decisions we adopted in Kiev last December had given us a mandate to be more involved on issues as environment, energy efficiency, and natural disasters and its impacts, which are all becoming more and more important for security of our citizens and communities. Latest negative winter impacts in Europe and North America, which are furthermore exceeding the normal course of life we all used to have, are only a part of issues we have been dealing with. I would here very much appreciate timely reflecting present needs, as the topic environmental challenges is among the priorities of the OEC's Swiss chairmanship this year. We have already had a first preparatory meeting of the Economic and Environmental Forum, which showed importance of common understanding, cross-dimensional and regional cooperation, resilient and prompt reactions needed to deal with such events. Economic and Environmental Forum in 2014 will focus whole year on environmental challenges, including natural disasters, within the topic responding to environmental challenges with a view to promoting cooperation and security in the OEC area. Allow me to devote some time now and enlighten you with what are my intentions based on the aims of the Swiss chairmanship this year. I will focus shortly on the main guidance of the work of the committee and be pleased to discuss your views, endeavors, and expectations from our activities during this year. The OEC Parliament Assembly Monaco Declaration in 2012 encouraged governments to consider the economic and environmental area of the OEC's work as one the most promising from the point of long-term interests. And I considered it also when having been preparing new challenges and aims to attain this year. Therefore, our main topics have been outlined as follows: mechanisms to assess money laundering risks and improve capacity to recover stolen assets in the OEC area, gender and environment, public-private partnerships to address economic and environmental challenges, sharing best practices on sustainable water management, implementation of the ministerial decisions 5/13 on improving the environmental footprint of energy-related activities, and 6/13 on protection of energy networks from natural and man-made disasters. I can assure you that the immediate assistance of our field missions as a visible advantage of our organization will be utilized during our thematic discussions. Let me briefly describe the content of the topics. First topic, mechanism to assess money laundering risks and improve capacity to recover stolen assets in the OEC area. Based on the work of the Irish chairmanship in 2012, we have progressed in the work focusing on money laundering and corruption-related issues. We have organized a lot of events on the expert level with clear recommendations for participating states, for example, seminar on identifying, restraining and recovering stolen assets in the OEC region. We have also produced the OEC handbook on data collection in support of money laundering and terrorism financing natural risk assessments, which is currently being translated into Russian language. Issues as money laundering and asset recovery raise many questions, and therefore we see an opportunity to tackle and discuss these issues during our thematic meeting in order to reach further progress and fulfillment of the conclusions of the declaration, focusing on good governance issues. Second topic, gender and environment. We mark the 10th anniversary of the OEC Action Plan for the promotion of gender equality this year. The plan calls for integration of a gender perspective into OEC activities and projects across all three dimensions of security. When we considered this issue, we thought it might be an obvious opportunity to address the topic of gender and environment and discuss it within the second dimension. Our aim is to focus on what has been achieved in the second dimension and how the environmental issues and its commitments can be introduced further into practice and implemented. We aim also to discuss deeper integration of gender aspects in the OEC's environmental activities through an increased cooperation between various OEC institutions and departments. The third topic, public-private partnerships to address economic and environmental challenges. When speaking on public-private partnerships, we must be convinced about their ability to gather necessary funding and invest in different areas. We all know that such partnerships at the national and regional levels can be instrumental in bringing the government agencies, business community and civil society much closer in their cooperation. Discussing during this thematic meeting will also focus on good examples within the OEC region. We intend also to explore further potential for OEC to be more active and engaged when promoting such partnerships. The fourth topic, sharing best practices on sustainable water management. Sustainable water management is among the priorities of the Swiss chairmanship in the second dimension in 2014. Different events throughout the year will focus on this topic. In the OEC region-wide exist more than 150 shared river and lake basins. Due to this fact, many states have had to agree on areas as water distribution, water management, and water use. Sustainable water management in this turbulent climatic changes period remains a challenge. We hope that sustainable water management topic can provide a platform where experts and participating states can share experiences and best practices with the aim to meet future challenges and grant sustainable and secure water supply. As is stated in the Istanbul Declaration, the water is essential for life, and that a suitable supply of high-quality water is a prerequisite for economic and social progress. The fifth topic, implementation of the ministerial decision 5/13 on improving the environmental footprint of energy-related activities, and 6/13 on protection of energy networks from natural and man-made disasters. In line with these latest decisions on energy adopted in December in Kiev, the first decision, 5/13, will focus our work on activities to support the exchange of best practices and build capacity in the areas related to environment and energy sustainability and security. The second decision, 6/13, will focus on more effective coordination of protection measures among the participating states and the exchange of good practices in the area of energy networks protection against natural and man-made disasters. Since the adoption of the decisions, the scale, frequency and severity of disasters gained on intensity, and therefore I very much welcome the Swiss chairmanship's priority focusing on more reliable management of natural disasters. Dear colleagues, Helsinki Plus 40 process is an opportunity to enhance the future role of the OSCE and the economic and environmental dimension. The conclusions from Istanbul reiterate central importance to the second dimension in the Helsinki Final Act for further cooperation and vital concerns the original drafters of the Act couldn't have anticipated. Allow me therefore to mention a novelty of the work of the committee this year, an aim to organize a retreat which should reflect on the Helsinki Plus 40 process with regard to the second dimension. We hope that this meeting will help us to create inspirations and reinforce commitments taken so far in order to strengthen the second dimension when reflecting the needs of the 21st century as a substantial pillar of the OSCE's comprehensive approach to security. Only economically prosperous region can be a prerequisite for secure region and further strengthen close and mutually beneficial cooperation aimed at building a genuine Euro-Atlantic and Euro-Asian security community. Thank you very much for your attention. I am looking forward for your immediate reactions, and I look for an effective cooperation this year again, and we are inviting you to our Economic and Environmental Committee meetings. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ambassador. I welcome Dr. Yves Gaudin. As I did before, I would like to introduce Dr. Yves Gaudin, who has served as coordinator of OSCE Economic and Environmental Activity since February 2013. From 1997 to 2003, he has an undersecretary at the Turkish Ministry of Energy and Natural Resources with responsibility for water and the mining policy. Outside of politics, Yves Gaudin served as vice president of the mining and the chemical-oriented group ET Bank from 1989 to 91, and more recently is board member of the steel pipe manufacturer Borizon Management. He has also acted as consultant in issues relating to energy economics, energy efficiency, and the Caspian geopolitics. Now you have the floor, Dr. Yves Gaudin. Thank you. Please.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Distinguished members of the OSCE Parliamentary Assembly, ladies and gentlemen. It's a great honor to participate today in the 13th winter meeting of the OSCE Parliamentary Assembly and address the Committee on Economic Affairs, Science, Technology and Environment. Before presenting to you the activities that my office has planned for 2014, I would like to dedicate a few minutes to the 22nd OSCE Economic and Environmental Forum. As you might already know, this year the forum process focuses on responding to environmental challenges with a view to promoting cooperation and security in the OSCE area. My office, in close cooperation with the Swiss chairmanship, organized on 27th and 28th of January the first preparatory meeting of this high-level event. The meeting was attended by senior representatives of partner organizations, national, international experts, members of the civil society and academia, as well as the private sector. Building upon the recommendations generated during the first event of the forum process, a second preparatory meeting will take place in Montreux, Switzerland, followed by a concluding meeting to be organized in Prague in September. Now, let me highlight some of the activities of my office planned for 2014. As rapporteur of the committee, Mr. Williams illustrated the security threats related to economic and environmental developments in our region are very diverse. The 2012 Dublin Declaration on strengthening good governance and combating corruption, money laundering, and the financing of terrorism provides the OSCE with comprehensive mandate to promote well-governed, transparent, and non-corrupt economies that positively impact growth, stability, and security. We plan to publish a revised edition of the OSCE Best Practices in Combating Corruption Handbook, and we will continue to provide assistance to participating states in implementing their commitments under the UN Convention Against Corruption and the Financial Action Task Force recommendations. Throughout its anti-corruption work in 2014, we plan to support Field Presence's efforts to empower civil society to more actively participate in decision-making processes, particularly related to corruption prevention. My office also plans to continue supporting the work of the OECD's Anti-Corruption Network for Eastern Europe and Central Asia. In summer of 2014, our organizations will jointly organize in cooperation with our field presence in Albania, a regional workshop on best practices in the field of corruption prevention. We will continue to support participating states in developing and implementing public sector integrity and transparency measures, ethical codes of conduct for officials, income and asset declaration systems, and anti-corruption strategies and legislation. We believe that asset recovery mechanisms require particular attention, and we are drawing attention to synergies between anti-corruption and anti-money laundering efforts, including opportunities to use asset declaration systems to identify corrupt activity. We plan to continue supporting the use of the OSCE handbook on data collection in support of money laundering and terrorism financing national risk assessments. The Russian language of this handbook will be released in the coming months, and throughout 2014, the office, in partnership with the World Bank, will provide technical support for risk assessments in Croatia, the former Yugoslav Republic of Macedonia, and in Montenegro. In the transport, trade, and customs field, we plan to build further upon the main findings and recommendations of the OSCE UNECE Handbook of Best Practices at Border Crossings, a trade and transport facilitation perspective, which is now available in 5 languages. Specifically, we are planning 3 CIS regional workshops on risk assessment in customs and trade facilitation, together with the World Customs Organization and UN Economic Commission for Europe. We will also continue to provide support to developing Euro-Asian transport links under the project of our close partner, the UNECE. In the field of labor migration management, we plan to release the Spanish version of the OSCE Gender-Sensitive Labor Migration Policy Guide and the Russian version of the OSCE Handbook on Harmonization and Sharing of Migration Data. Moreover, the office, together with our Secretariat's Gender Unit, is planning to organize 2 seminars on gender-sensitive labor migration policies, one in a country of origin and another in a country of destination. Building further upon last year's achievements, my office will also continue to promote equal opportunities for female entrepreneurs by providing targeted training and increased networking opportunities. Let me now turn to planned environmental activities of this year. Addressing today's complex environmental and security challenges calls for a robust and flexible framework for action and requires a multifaceted approach. For the past decade, the Environment and Security Initiative, ENSEC, embracing the OSCE, UNDP, UNEP, UNECE, REC, and NATO as an associated partner, has proven to be a reliable mechanism for a concerted support of regional and national efforts to reduce environmental-related security risks. I would like to highlight several priority areas where my office is actively contributing to foster sustainable development, peace, and stability. Let me start with the issue of water. While water scarcity and quality can potentially lead to conflicting situations or aggravate existing ones, cooperation for joint management of shared water resources can contribute to conflict prevention and confidence building. But we will have a special debate on this issue later this afternoon. Another area is climate change. In our work, we put particular focus on the security implications of climate change in different parts of the OSCE area. Currently, we are partnering with the European Commission Instrument for Stability, also with the support of the Austrian Development Agency, to define climate change and security hotspots in Eastern Europe, South Caucasus, and Central Asia. In Eastern Europe, our work includes the design of a basin-wide adaptation strategy for the Dniester River. The project will make it possible to more effectively mainstream climate change and security considerations into national policies and strategies. Next area also linked to climate change and the topic of the 22nd Economic and Environmental Forum is disaster risk reduction. Natural disasters know no borders, and their consequences can fuel tensions and lead to conflicts within and among societies. This only underlines the importance of transboundary cooperation on preparedness and response to natural disasters and its significant potential as a confidence-building measure. My office has already developed a set of projects addressing different types of disasters, ranging from floods in transboundary river basins to landslides to vegetation fires and various dimensions of disaster risk reduction in Central Asia, South Caucasus, and Eastern Europe. Let me also mention hazardous waste as one of the areas where the OSCE is making a difference. Toxic and radioactive legacies of the Soviet Union, as well as transnational threats posed by illegal shipments of hazardous waste, are a real problem faced by many of the participating states. In Central Asia, we will remain actively engaged in our cooperation with International Atomic Energy Agency and other regional and international players regarding uranium legacy sites. In Eastern Europe, we are involved in 2 projects: removal of obsolete pesticides from Transnistria and training of border management officers in Moldova and Ukraine to prevent environmental crime at the border. Environmental good governance firmly remains one of our priority areas for engagement. Currently, the OSCE supports a network of over 50 Aarhus centers in 13 countries and will further continue to enhance their role in strengthening multi-stakeholder dialogue and participation in environmental decision-making. Referring to partnerships, I would like to once again emphasize the essential role of parliamentarians in addressing environment and security challenges and sustainable development. You are uniquely positioned to influence the shape and content of your respective national developments and agendas, and thus you have a crucial role in shaping the post-2015 development agenda. We need your support and cooperation in addressing these global challenges effectively in the OSCE region. My last point regards energy, a topic that received extensive attention during the Ukrainian chairmanship last year, resulting in 2 Ministerial Council decisions adopted at the Ministerial Council in Kiev. The decision 5/13 on improving the environmental footprint of energy-related activities in the OSCE region and the Ministerial Council Declaration 6/13 on protection of energy networks from natural and man-made disasters. Follow-up activities on both decisions are being planned as we speak. Activities in 2014 will also reflect continuity of endeavors of previous years. Some concrete examples of our cooperation with our field presences will include supporting the OSCE Center in Ashgabat in establishing the first center of excellence of renewable energy in the country and organizing with the OSCE office in Tajikistan a regional conference on best practices in energy cooperation. My last point is again referring to the importance of cooperation. My office will continue to work with the UNECE Sustainable Energy Division, the Energy Charter Secretariat, the International Energy Agency and NATO, as well as with the organizations which make up the Vienna Energy Club. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Mr. Dr. Erdogan. We now have a debate on the presentation by Mr. Erdogan. 4 committee members have asked to speak. Other delegates who wish to speak should give their names to committee staff. Each delegate will have the floor for a maximum of 5 minutes. Open the floor, Mrs. Sena from Portugal.
Thank you, Madam Chairman, Mr. Rapporteur, dear colleagues. I would like to introduce you a new subject, I think meaningful to this committee. We are well aware that from the appearance of the first personal computer in 1975 to the present day, there has been a radical paradigm shift in teaching, learning, and qualification. 21st century students are digital natives and will live in a world whose social and economic structures are not fully clear to us now. We are inundated with information, but are still not full of knowledge, much less wisdom. The electronic technology that brought the future to the present so quickly has also bridged the gap between need and fulfillment, between learning and solidification of knowledge. Hyper-technological society focused on the new dismisses the old and considers anything we cannot quantify to be useless. Since knowledge and understanding are difficult to quantify, we have seen the paradox between academic and educational culture and the resources involved. The relationship between public financing for science, education, and medium and long-term impact or results has not, for a long time, opposed the quantitative rationale of technology. In addition to indispensable financial resources, quality in education and science involves other factors such as rigorous evaluation, high standards, freedom, and a very clear focus on knowledge touching on every level of education. Without freedom, there's no science. That's why Brian Cox, quantum physics, discussing why science is essential for modern democracies, said, "For a democracy to function correctly, we need as many citizens as possible to at least have an understanding of scientific method and technological punch." We live in a society, as Carl Sagan always emphasized, a society that is entirely based on science. It is based on technology and engineering. All the great, important decisions that our democracies will be forced to take in the next decades and all the way into the 21st century are based on science. They're based on scientific method. They're based on an understanding what reason and reaching conclusions based on evidence is. In fact, these are two priority areas in the Europe 2020 strategy to overcome the economic and financial crisis currently being experienced in Europe, in particular when we following strategic goals were laid out. Investing at least 3% of EU's GDP in R&D, lowering the school dropout rate to less than 10%, and the target of at least 40% of the latest generation having an higher education degree. As such, it is essential to carefully apply public money so that it materializes in an actual investment in the future of younger generations. But in OSCE regions, the challenges are beyond that. In a globalized world, having skills and capacities is not enough. It is essential to create citizens who are free, independent, responsible, aware, and active. Countries need the same qualities. They need entrepreneurial spirit, individual initiatives, and the boldness to innovate is imperative. It is urgent to strengthen democracy in all OSCE area. There are obstacles to advance of democracy, competing ideologies, uncertain loyalties, and corruption. Some people feel they have God-given rights to impose their views on others, trample other civil liberties. And here the values of science have much to say, because scientific values are lessons for democracy. Honor, a scientist accused of plagiarism will be ostracized by his community, teamwork, engagement with the contrarian view, and the freedom to inquire, challenge, and think. Dear colleagues, much of what we will be in coming decades, as a people and as an aggregate body, will depend on our efforts in the area of science, our knowledge, and our ability to translate the results of research into socio-economic value and job creation, but also the role of science in strengthening our democracies. Democracy and science interact to assist us with the emergence of an informed and participant citizenry. There are also societal values worth protecting. The promotion of all these values is culture of promoting humanism. Science is a big part of this, and so is democracy. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Sena. I give the floor Mr. Nugurbekov from Kazakhstan. Please.
Я хотел бы поддержать выступление госпожи Сена, что именно только опора на науку может помочь всем нам в борьбе с последствиями крупного глобального финансово-экономического кризиса. Дело в том, что в 2008 году, во время острой фазы финансово-экономического кризиса, в Астане был создан Евразийский экономический клуб ученых, который ежегодно проводит Астанинский экономический форум. На сегодняшний день данный форум, данный клуб объединяет ученых, экономистов и практиков из более 120 государств мира. Мы предлагаем для активного обсуждения вопросов второго измерения использовать возможности Евразийского экономического клуба ученых и ежегодного Астанинского экономического форума, где проходят дискуссии между учеными и практиками. Также мы в последнее время в работе Астанинского экономического клуба ученых активно используем возможности коммуникативной площадки G-Global. В 2012 году решением Генеральной Ассамблеи Организации Объединенных Наций была поддержана инициатива ученых-экономистов о проведении в Астане Всемирной антикризисной конференции для принятия антикризисного плана. И в прошлом году она прошла, и по итогам антикризисной конференции была выработана Астанинская декларация и основные направления антикризисного плана. На сегодняшний день на коммуникативной площадке G-Global идет активное наполнение 16 направлений данного антикризисного плана. Уже размещено более 10 тысяч докладов, научных статей, и идут активные дискуссии. В этом году, 21-23 мая, в городе Астане в Казахстане состоится 7-й Астанинский экономический форум, и в рамках 7-го Астанинского экономического форума пройдет 2-я Всемирная антикризисная конференция на уровне руководителей, на уровне министров экономик, финансов и руководителей центральных банков. Всем представителям государственных органов ваших стран мы уже направили приглашение и всех ждем для обсуждения проекта мирового антикризисного плана, который сейчас активно обсуждается на коммуникативной площадке G-Global. Я бы хотел, чтобы наш комитет активно использовал для обсуждения вопросов второго измерения Астанинский экономический форум, коммуникативную площадку G-Global. Я всех вас приглашаю на коммуникативную площадку G-Global, где в виртуальном режиме идет обсуждение всех материалов, круглых столов, пленарных заседаний Астанинского экономического форума, а также идет наполнение основных направлений мирового антикризисного плана. Я всех вас прошу принять активное участие в данных дискуссиях, а также приглашаю 21-23 мая в Казахстан, город Астану, для участия в 7-м Астанинском экономическом форуме. Там также идет очень активное обсуждение таких именно повестки сегодняшней, это вопросы водной, продовольственной безопасности, а также создание новой мировой финансовой экономической архитектуры. Для того именно ученое сообщество инициирует все эти дискуссии. Также обсуждаются вопросы более активного участия международных финансовых институтов. И то, что мы должны не только бороться со следствиями финансово-экономического кризиса, который происходит в разных регионах наших стран, а именно используя, как говорила госпожа Сена, опираясь и используя научные круги, именно потенциал теоретиков, финансов, экономистов, и чтобы в союзе теоретиков и практиков выработать конкретные механизмы борьбы с мировым финансово-экономическим кризисом, и не только бороться, а найти причину следствия и находить превентивные меры. Спасибо большое.
Thank you, Mr. Nugerbekov. I give the floor Mr. Humphreys from Miss Humphreys, Ireland. Miss Humphreys.
Thank you.
From Ireland.
Okay.
Please.
Thank you, Madam Chair, for allowing me to take the floor, and thank you to the distinguished speakers for their very informative presentations. Following on from these, I would like to highlight an issue that we should be consistently mindful of and which should underpin all aspects of our work. Its relevance has already been mentioned by this committee's distinguished speakers, but please allow me to elaborate upon this briefly in my national capacity. Good governance was a priority of the Irish chairmanship of the OSCE in 2012 and continues to be an issue that must remain high on the agenda of this organisation. The Dublin Declaration on Strengthening Good Governance and Combating Corruption, Money Laundering and the Financing of Terrorism is widely perceived as a significant set of commitments for the OSCE in the economic and environmental dimension, and a key reference point for future work. We believe it should be a pillar of our work and a cross-cutting theme of our comprehensive approach to security. Good governance is also a priority for the Irish government domestically. The economic crisis exposed a glaring lack of openness, transparency and accountability in our landscape. Ireland has taken steps in line with the new OSCE commitments contained in the Good Governance Declaration. The Protected Disclosures Bill, currently under review in the Irish Parliament, aims to provide comprehensive whistleblower protection across all sectors of the economy, addressing what has been identified nationally and internationally as a significant gap in the legal framework for combating corruption. In addition, the general scheme of the Criminal Justice Corruption Bill is currently being drafted by the Office of Parliamentary Counsel. This provides for a consolidated anti-corruption statute to replace and reform the provisions of earlier corruption and related ethics legislation. It strengthens the penalties for corruption and empowers courts to remove corrupt officials from office. It also makes renewed provision for the key requirements in a number of international agreements relating to corruption. Ireland is also taking part in the Open Government Partnership Initiative, which seeks to enhance government transparency and increase civic participation in decision-making. Public consultations were carried out at the end of last year, in which over 100 participants contributed 62 action plan proposals. Ireland is now on track to deliver its action plan, which will allow it to formally join the OGP in April 2014. In doing so, it will reiterate its commitment to the principles enshrined in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, the UN Convention Against Corruption and other instruments related to human rights and good governance. The Dublin Declaration makes clear that problems of governance, including corruption and money laundering, undermine social cohesion, stability and security, and acknowledges that weak governance can be conducive to the spread of terrorism. It reaffirms that the rule of law and respect for human rights are crucial to creating a climate of confidence necessary for positive economic and social development. It recognises the importance of protecting whistleblowers, of safeguarding the judiciary's independence, and acknowledges the role that freedom of and access to information play in fostering openness and accountability. It also calls for strengthened dialogue and cooperation between governments, civil society and the private sector in order to support good governance efforts, including the implementation of anti-corruption commitments. Given the broad implications of the declaration, I am particularly pleased that good governance remains at the forefront of the work of the Office of the Coordinator for Economic and Environmental Affairs, and that the thematic focus of one of the Economic Environmental Committee meetings will be on combating corruption. The Swiss chairmanship's theme for this year's Economic and Environmental Forum rightly places good governance at the heart of the debate on disaster risk management, and its intention to focus the Economic and Environmental Implementation meeting on the implementation of the Dublin Declaration is a welcome one. We believe a review of the implementation of commitments in this respect is timely and has the potential to provide further food for thought on how to strengthen commitments and further enhance the cross-dimensional approach to good governance, transparency and the fight against corruption. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Humphrey. I give floor Ms. Moore from Canada.
Je vous remercie pour votre présentation et vos observations intéressantes. Chers collègues parlementaires, je suis heureuse d'être parmi vous aujourd'hui et je vous remercie de me donner l'occasion de m'adresser à vous. J'ai la chance d'être porte-parole adjointe de l'opposition officielle pour l'énergie et les ressources naturelles au Canada, donc c'est des questions qui me concernent particulièrement. Lors de sa dernière rencontre annuelle à Istanbul, notre Assemblée a insisté sur l'importance de trouver un équilibre entre les objectifs en matière de sécurité énergétique et d'économie et les objectifs en matière d'environnement. En raison de la montée de la demande mondiale en énergie, nous avons convenu que l'efficacité énergétique et les sources d'énergie renouvelables joueront un rôle de plus en plus important dans le contexte de développement durable et de la transition vers une économie mondiale à faible densité de carbone. Pourriez-vous nous parler davantage de ce que font le Bureau du coordonnateur des activités économiques et environnementales de l'OSCE et d'autres structures de l'OSCE pour appuyer et favoriser le développement d'efficacité énergétique et l'exploitation des sources d'énergie renouvelables? Des projets sont-ils en cours pour aider les États membres de l'OSCE à passer à une économie verte? J'aimerais également entendre le point de vue de mes collègues parlementaires sur les initiatives et les efforts les plus récents déployés dans leurs pays respectifs pour trouver des solutions novatrices en matière d'énergie dans le contexte du développement durable. Permettez-moi aussi de commenter brièvement la question du développement durable et de l'extraction des ressources. Comme beaucoup d'entre vous le savent, le Canada est un pays riche en ressources qui connaît une croissance rapide dans les secteurs des mines et des hydrocarbures. L'avènement de nouvelles technologies a également ouvert la porte à de nouvelles possibilités de mise en valeur de ressources énergétiques non classiques comme les gaz de schiste et de nouveaux minéraux comme les métaux de terre rares que l'on trouve d'ailleurs dans ma circonscription. Ces possibilités, toutefois, s'accompagnent de défis environnementaux sans précédent et requièrent des solutions d'avant-garde. J'aimerais en savoir davantage sur les travaux, le cas échéant, du Bureau du coordonnateur des activités économiques et environnementales de l'OSCE au sujet des retombées économiques, sociales et environnementales de l'extraction des gaz de schiste, des métaux de terre rares et des ressources naturelles de secteurs émergents. Chers collègues, j'aimerais également connaître votre point de vue et vos expériences relativement à l'extraction non classique de ressources et à son incidence sur les objectifs de développement durable. Je vous remercie de votre attention. Je me réjouis à la perspective de discuter plus amplement de ces questions avec vous.
Thank you, Ms. Moore. I give the floor to Miss Kaletnik from Ukraine.
Спасибо, госпожа председатель, за возможность выступить. Уважаемые коллеги, спасибо вам за ваше внимание. Также я хотела бы поблагодарить за множество важных вопросов, прозвучавших сегодня в докладах. И позвольте мне сделать несколько акцентов относительно темы, которая прозвучала в докладе господина Халила Угурдугина. Очень важна поддержка организации ОБСЕ в вопросе содействия взаимодействию в зонах трансграничных конфликтов. Я сейчас имею в виду зону Приднестровского конфликта. Поступление в водные объекты значительного количества опасных и ядовитых веществ, сброса городских и промышленных сточных вод, ливневых стоков застроенных территорий промышленных объектов и сельхозугодий значительно ухудшают экологическое состояние источников водоснабжения, которые являются Днестр. Ограниченные технические возможности очистки питьевой воды и обеспечения ею в достаточном количестве населения приводят к опасности возникновения и распространению различных заболеваний. Общая численность населения, проживающих в районе реки, составляет около 8 миллионов человек. Для того, чтобы решать взаимно проблемы, нам нужна поддержка международного сообщества в вопросах взаимного сотрудничества. Для решения проблем, которые являются вызовом природы, необходимо отодвинуть на задний план споры, лежащие в политической плоскости между странами, находящиеся в трансграничном взаимодействии. На мой взгляд, необходимо более активное подключение к подобным вопросам ОБСЕ. И мое глубокое убеждение, через сотрудничество и активное взаимодействие в задачах решения экологических проблем мы способны более эффективно решать и политические проблемы. Спасибо огромное. Я рассчитываю на поддержку в подобных вопросах.
Спасибо, госпожа Калетник. I give the floor to Mrs. Green from Sweden.
Thank you very much, and thank you so much for all these reports. I'm looking forward to see more about your work and what you are going to suggest against corruption and new interesting technology and sustainable economy. I have some questions to Olga from Slovakia. I agree with you that gender equality and environment, those issues are very important and relevant issues. But I didn't understand how you mean that they two are linked to each other. Do you mean that women in common are much better than men to take care of the environment and take better decisions to stop the pollutions and the carbon? Or are women better to take care of the earth in common? It should be interesting to hear what you mean, how those two issues are linked to each other. I agree with you, they both are very, very important, but I should appreciate if you could tell us a little bit more about that. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Green. I give the floor to Barnett from Germany.
Vielen Dank, Frau Vorsitzende. Vielen Dank auch den beiden Berichterstattern. Ich bin froh, dass wir endlich etwas tiefer einsteigen in die Problematik der Wirtschaftspolitik und der Umweltpolitik, auch hier in unserem Gremium. Ähnlich verfahren wir ja auch im Europarat, also in der Parlamentarischen Versammlung des Europarates. Da gibt es Überschneidungen und wir können, glaube ich, hier etwas enger zusammenarbeiten, dass wir nicht die Arbeit immer doppelt machen, sowohl dort als auch hier. Und dann kann man auch schneller voneinander lernen oder auch etwas weiterentwickeln. Sie haben sehr zu Recht auf die Korruption hingewiesen. In diesem Zusammenhang möchte ich aber auch daran erinnern, dass wir vielleicht noch etwas tiefer gehen müssen in das alltägliche Leben der Menschen. Wenn nämlich sich Grenzen öffnen oder die Möglichkeit der Grenzüberschreitung gegeben ist, ist die Gefahr immer groß, dass es Arbeitsmigration gibt. Dagegen habe ich gar nichts. Ich habe nur dann etwas dagegen, wenn man die Arbeitnehmer, die man sich reinholt, aus Ländern, bei denen es wirtschaftlich nicht so gut geht, dass man die dann ausbeutet. Das führt dazu, dass die heimischen Arbeitnehmer arbeitslos werden, dass es zu Fremdenfeindlichkeit kommt und dass natürlich dann die Wanderarbeiter dann auch viel schlechter behandelt werden. Das führt dazu, dass in ihren Heimatländern sie als Arbeitnehmer fehlen und dann ihre Heimatländer halt sich andernorts wieder jemand besorgen müssen. Und so ist das ein Kreislauf, den wir eigentlich unterbrechen sollten. Wir sollten darauf achten, langfristig, das kriegen wir nicht in 14 Tagen hin, aber wir sollten darauf achten, dass wir in unseren Ländern überall vernünftige Bedingungen für unsere Menschen schaffen, dass sie von dem, was sie erarbeiten, auch leben können, dass sie nicht mehr gezwungen sind, sich irgendwelchen Menschenschindern auszuliefern, um dann im Ausland irgendwo sich ihr Geld zu verdienen. Das ist mir auch ein ganz großes Anliegen, weil wir sonst auch über kurz oder lang halt diesen berühmten Brain Drain haben und dann die Länder, die ihre Menschen verlieren, die haben doch auch investiert, die haben doch auch Ausgaben gehabt in Bildung, in Ausbildung ihrer Leute. Und wenn dann die alle abgezogen werden von den reicheren, wohlhabenderen Ländern, dann müssen wir wieder viel Geld investieren, um das alles wieder, um neue Technologien und so weiter, Entwicklungen zurückzubringen. Also wir schießen uns selbst ins Knie, wenn wir hier nicht anfangen, diesen Kreislauf zu stoppen. Und vielleicht ist es möglich, dass wir hier auch und zusammen mit unseren hervorragenden Berichterstattern ein paar Forderungen formulieren können dazu. Das wäre mir auch ein wichtiges Anliegen. Dankeschön.
Thank you, Ms. Barnett. Now I will give the floor back Miss Ambassador and господин Erdogan for comments.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, and thank you for your valuable contributions to our discussion here today, and thank you for listening carefully to what we were telling to you, and of course we were carefully listening to what you are thinking about what we told. So, starting, maybe we can take it one by one, but I would like to point out the remark of representative of Germany, because the closer cooperation and not duplicate the work, just to find some synergy in work of what we are doing here and what the Parliamentary Assembly is doing as well, was subject to our discussion with Mr. President Krivo Kapic today. And definitely we agree that we will be more coordinated so that we can achieve much more if we work together and we communicate and exchange what we are doing. So thank you. This is my main point from today, that we agreed on some action plan how to work together. So that's positive for me. But the representative of Portugal, of course, science in today's digital world of the 21st century is very important. However, we always, the work of the Economic and Environmental Committee goes out always from the chairmanship's priorities. And last year, within the second dimension, the Ukrainian priority was energy security, and this year we have from the Swiss chairmanship, our focus is on environment. Of course, from different aspects, we have good governance, we have these gender issues, I will come back to that, and water, etc., etc. So let's tell, we cannot do everything, so science is definitely and without any questions very, very important, and is of course is linked to democracy and freedom and all what you told, and job creation and fighting economic crisis. This year focus of the Swiss chairmanship is on environment more, and the same what Kazakhstan told. Thank you for highlighting what you have done from the point of view of promoting the scientific links to economic situations, your economic forum in Astana and your global anti-crisis conference and declaration. So it's good for us to know, and maybe we will make a note for our work plan of this year, that probably we will have a look in more detail what we are doing there. We appreciate your activities. To the Irish presentation, of course, I mentioned it also in my presentation that our good governance activities are based on the Dublin Ministerial Council decision from 2012, what is a very good base for us to continue this year on good governance work. So, all what you told, I can just subscribe that money laundering and combating corruption is important in economic wealth, and we have to strive more for transparency, accountability, and this is what we in fact have in our work plan. It is, I was presenting it today here, mechanisms to assess money laundering risks and improve capacity to recover stolen assets in the OEC area. So we are going to build on on a Ministerial Council decision from Dublin. Canada. The question towards projects probably goes to my colleague, to the Mr. Coordinator, who will have a floor after me. Of course, you also touched the link between energy, security, and economic wealth. And let me tell you something very, very personal. Energy there is not a complete consensus to speak about energy security in this organization, and we know why. This is a sensitive topic, and I know that there were trials in past to introduce the topic of energy security here, and it was never successful. So I'm personally very proud that we had this last year, and we have even 2 Ministerial Council decisions on energy security. So this is, in fact, for the first time we achieved this. So I'm very happy that you are interested in this topic, and as well as I presented this year, we have implementation of these 2 Ministerial Council decisions from last year from Kiev. So we are going to work on that. Probably I'm sure that our field missions have many projects on energy security, but you watched on that from a little bit different perspective, speaking about shale oil and minerals and natural resources and non-conventional extraction. So we had it last year. I consider it to be a success because we reached 2 MC decisions, and we go to implement this year. So we are really open to accept any of your proposals, what we should include in our work as well. The Ukrainian presentation, yes, water management, use and distribution definitely has political implications. We are aware of that. We have it in our plan of work this year, and let's see what the governments have to tell to that and what we will achieve. So we definitely go and we will work on that. So there was direct question on me from Sweden. How can we link gender and environment? And you yourself admit that there is a link. So, and you ask me what is the link. In my opinion, gender is cross-dimensional issue. So it goes through first, second, and third dimension. And as this year we have environment as a Swiss chairmanship's priority, we will link it. I see some links. Women are those who are responsible in households for energy supply, so for their families, to take care from the point of view of taking care about the family. And we can take it from separation of waste or definitely gender is cross-dimensional. We see the link. We will have a thematic meeting. We will have presentations of expert speakers, and we will make some conclusions from that. So we didn't have this thematic meeting yet, so I don't know what the conclusions will be. But you and me, we see the link between those 2 topics, and I think we have to integrate deeper gender agenda into all 3 dimensions, as well in the second dimension. For instance, last year, we always had a presentation on gender. We had 4 thematic meetings last year, and in 2 of them, we had a presentation always from our gender department here in the Secretariat, from our special advisor on gender issues department, and the experts will bring the topic, and the delegations will speak about it, and there will be some conclusions. So environment has a direct impact on economy, and economy and gender, so there is undisputable role of women in all this. So let us see what it will bring. If you have any good idea, we are welcoming it. Thank you. And Germany, I mentioned already. Thank you very much for bringing the issue of necessity of closer cooperation between committees of Parliamentary Assembly and committees which we have here in Vienna. Thank you very much for attention. If I'm open for any further of your questions. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Have you a comment?
Yes, thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Mr. Sorry. She madams have question.
Thank you very much for the answer, and I just want to comment some, and I agree with you there that there is a link, but I think that we shouldn't think that the women should take all the responsibility for the environment and for the homes and things like that. I think that we need to have more women in municipalities, in parliaments, in government, and we also need more men to take care of children and of the house at home. So they should also know a lot of these issues. And then it's one issue for me, and the other issues is that all countries need to decide in the parliament that we should reduce the pollutions, we should reduce carbon from traffic and from the industries and etc., etc. But we can talk about this more, but if we see the link, and we could do a wider and connect even men in these issues.
Thank you. Ms. Green, have you comments? Ms.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Madam Chair. My colleagues and myself, we heard carefully the statements and deliberations here and took note many of the interesting ideas and suggestions. As Madam Sena mentioned, we believe the importance of science to promote economic growth and to foster our democracies. And we indeed invite always academicians to our forum meetings to benefit from their ideas at the end, to help the politicians to formulate our council decisions and our declarations. Mr. Nugurbiakov mentioned the severe impacts of the world economic crisis and mentioned the Astana Economic Forum as a platform to discuss these issues, and also the global anti-crisis plan of action. Our office, I personally participated at the Astana Economic Forum, also head of our field presence in Astana, and we participated in the discussions, and we plan also this year to be part of this very important forum. Ms. Humphreys from Ireland mentioned the anti-corruption activities. We plan to intensify our activities in the field of good governance. Indeed, we made good governance to an umbrella topic, so covering all areas of our activities. We will organize this fall a security day on good governance. We believe prosperity and economic growth goes hand in hand with good governance. If you have corruption, if you have no good governance in a country, you cannot attract investment, and high unemployment is a huge threat for the stability in countries and also in the region. Ms. Moore from Canada asked about our projects on the renewable energy. Indeed, we are promoting energy efficiency and renewable energy in the OSCE region. Last year we organized a a large workshop in Tashkent, and all from all Central Asian countries, participants discussed the possibilities to deploy renewable energy in Central Asia with experts from different countries. We address environmental threats regarding the extractive industries, mining industries, and also oil sector, mainly via Aarhus centers for capacity building of the citizens, and we hope that these activities can be extended also in the future. But let me mention also the International Energy Agency, a partner organization of us, published a guideline for shale extraction industries called Golden Rules for a Golden Age of Natural Gas, as I can remember. Ms. Kaletny from Ukraine mentioned the Dniester River Basin and the pollution issues. This is one of the areas, it's in a special focus of OSCE. OSCE facilitated negotiations between Ukraine and Moldova since 2004, and 2012 is an international treaty has been signed between Moldova and Ukraine, and last year Moldova ratified this treaty. We hope also that Ukraine can ratify it in the coming days so that the treaty can get into force, and the implementation of a joint commission on fishery, on pollution control can work in the region. We have also a part, as I mentioned, of the climate change project. We have a climate adaptation project for the Dniester River Basin in preparation. Ms. Barnett mentioned that we should not have any duplication of our work with other international organizations. Yes, indeed, we are trying our best in this regard. This is also what we are doing when in good governance side we are working closely with OECD, with UNDP, with other task force from other agencies, UNODC also. And on the environment side, we are closely working with UNEP, UNEC, and UNDP and other environmental organizations. This helps us to create a difference with very small financial, support from donors, because every international organization has its special strengths, and so we can use these strengths and then realize a project with really limited amounts of money. These were the notes I took, and I thank you very much for your suggestions and ideas. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you for comments. Now we come to special debate on cooperation in water management in the OSCE area. Before proceeding to debate, I would like to say a few words about the issues we are going to discuss. There are few issues more fundamental to human security than issues of energy, food security, and the water management. The availability and the management of water for people across the OSCE area is a topic which transcends the effort of the individual, the state, and indeed the international system like no other. If anything, the relevant of this basic element of life has only increased with comparative technological and logistical innovation which tend to revolutionize the way in which we extract, consume and distribute these and other natural resources. For example, the fact critics point the water pollution as a byproduct of hydraulic fracturing or flaking hints at the tension that can exist between different varieties of natural resource extraction and development. It's becoming increasingly clear how these issues intersect, which new form of energy extraction affecting the water supply, which in turn affect everything, including agriculture and food production. This growing relevance is evident in an array of equally contemporary water-related initiatives that continue to unfold across the OSCE area. To mention but a few, one can point to the European Union's ambitious Water Framework Directive of the 2000, the funds earmarked for clean water infrastructure under the USA 2009 Recovery and Reinvestment Act, or the work of the United Nations Economic Commission for Europe in the RLC from the same year. I am quite sure that we will delve further into these issues and the examples during the course of today's presentation and the debates. I welcome Dr. Erdogan again and give him the floor to introduce the debate. You have the floor, Dr. Erdogan. Again.
Madam Chair, thank you very much. Distinguished members of the OSCE Parliamentary Assembly, ladies and gentlemen. It's a great honor to address you a second time today for an introduction to the special debate on cooperation in water management in the OSCE area. As you have already heard in the previous presentations, this topic will accompany us throughout the Swiss and Serbian chairmanships. Let me start with the question, why is water a priority issue for us as a regional security organization? Well, first, water is a strategic resource and an essential element of national and regional security, especially within the context of food or energy security and economic stability. Second, there are more than 150 shared river and lake basins in the OSCE area. In all these, 2 or more riparian states have to agree how to distribute water resources, how to manage navigation, how to reduce pollution, and how to arrange decision-making power. These issues tackle the question of how to reconcile national needs and interests with those of neighboring countries. For many watersheds, OSCE participating states have established joint bodies and long-standing and trustful cooperation, not only at major rivers like the Danube or the Rhine, but also in many small rivers and lake basins. With the UNEC Convention on the protection and use of transboundary water courses and international lakes, the OSCE region is in the unique position of having a legally binding convention at its disposal, which now is also open for accession to non-UNEC countries. The Water Convention, as well as the EU Water Framework Directive for the EU member states, obliges its parties to cooperation on transboundary water courses. With these achievements, our region is well advanced in water cooperation and we can be proud of this. Nevertheless, as you all know, an agreement is only the first step. Only full implementation and compliance by all parties make it effective. And therewith I come to my second point. Water issues are far from being solved by everywhere in the OSCE area. There are still several transboundary water basins that lack an agreement, have an insufficient agreement, or have no effective implementation mechanisms. This is of particular risk on those places that lack good neighborly relations that could channel potential disputes. Water can also be a security challenge on the domestic level, threatening socio-economic development and political stability. In addition, climate change will put additional stress on water resources and put water availability at risk. The newest edition of the Global Risk Report, which is published annually by the World Economic Forum, identified once again water crisis as one of the highest global risks. These water crises manifest themselves differently. Floods in one place, scarcity and droughts in another, severe pollution problems in yet other locations. Everywhere, however, higher variability and changed water availability will have far-reaching effects on society, economy, and security. And the impacts of water crisis are far from being felt only locally. Due to our globally interdependent economy, floods and droughts have impacts on food supplies and industrial production around the globe. Water and its linkages with security get increased attention from our participating states. Let me just remind you of two major events of the last year. The Dushanbe High-Level International Conference on Water Cooperation in August, where I had the pleasure to participate, and the Budapest Water Summit in October, where our Secretary General delivered an opening speech. I would also like to emphasize the importance of coordination, partnerships, and participation. Effective water cooperation requires involvement of all concerned stakeholders, including civil society, the private sector, and academia. It requires horizontal coordination between different sectors, and it necessitates mainstreaming of the gender perspective. Only then we are able to maximize environmental, social, and economic benefits and contribute to increased security in the OSCE region. And with this, I come to my third point, the role of the OSCE in fostering cooperation on water management. Let me start by mentioning some of the key documents in this respect. The 2003 Maastricht Strategy document for the OSCE economic and environmental dimension refers to the need for cooperation for sustainable management of shared natural resources, including water. Also, the OSCE Economic and Environmental Forum process has focused on water issues on several occasions. At the 10th Forum in 2002, cooperation for the sustainable use and protection of quality of water was the main topic. Later, the 15th Forum in 2007 concentrated on the key challenges to environmental security in the OSCE region, among which water management was an important issue. As a result of the forum, the Madrid Ministerial Declaration on Environment and Security was adopted, along with a ministerial decision on water management, which emphasized closer cooperation with the UNECE and other international organizations in the sphere of water management, and called upon participating states to enhance cooperation on water management. Finally, the 16th Forum in 2008 touched upon maritime and inland waterways cooperation in order to increase security and promote the protection of the environment. And this year, sustainable water management is one of the priorities of the Swiss chairmanship and the second dimension, as you already know. So let's have a closer look on how these commitments have been translated into concrete activities to support water cooperation among the participating states. In Southeastern Europe, the OSCE, together with other major donors, supported the development of the SAVA Framework Agreement. It was the first development-oriented multilateral agreement in former Yugoslavia after the Dayton Peace Agreement, signed by Bosnia and Herzegovina, Croatia, Serbia, at those days Federal Republic of Yugoslavia, together, Serbia and Montenegro together, and Slovenia in 2002. The first meeting of the Interim Sava Basin Commission took place at the OSCE premises here in Vienna in 2003. After that, OSCE support focused on establishing networks among local actors from the Sava River Basin and on encouraging the involvement of civil society in the environmental protection of the Sava River. In Eastern Europe, OSCE, UNEC, and several other actors have since 2004 supported projects bringing together governmental agencies, non-governmental organizations, and academia on both sides of the Dniester River to stimulate transboundary water cooperation. As I mentioned before, in 2012, the Dniester River Basin Treaty was signed, and we hope that after the ratification of Ukraine, the Joint River Basin Commission to steer activities in the field of monitoring, fish conservation, pollution prevention, and emergency response can start to act. The Dniester River Basin is also a pilot case as a part of a 3-year OSCE-led environment and security project focusing on climate change and security financed by the Instrument for Stability of the European Commission. In this context, a transboundary climate change adaptation strategy is under development for the basin. In the South Caucasus and again in the framework of the EMSEC initiative, the OSCE, in collaboration with UNEC, has been facilitating since 2010 several rounds of bilateral consultations between Azerbaijan and Georgia for the development of an agreement on the Kura River Basin. The finalization and signing of this agreement is expected for 2014. As part of its comprehensive efforts to address the August 2008 conflict in Georgia, the OSCE's Conflict Prevention Center has been implementing practical water projects in the area affected by the conflict on both sides of the administrative boundary line. As a result of these projects, potable water has been supplied for consumption and irrigation purposes, and infrastructure was refurbished. These projects have paved the way for confidence building between local communities and are set to continue despite political disagreements. In Central Asia, the OSCE, together with UNEC, has since 2003 supported the establishment and operation of a bilateral water commission of Kazakhstan and Kyrgyzstan on the Chu and Talas rivers. The first project culminated with the inauguration of the Chu and Talas Commission in July 2006 and was followed by activities to foster stakeholder participation. Also, in our relations with the OSCE partners for cooperation, we support water cooperation. Afghanistan shares the Amu Darya Basin with the 3 OSCE participating states and is already involved in joint activities with the OSCE office in Tajikistan and the EMSEC initiative. For the Mediterranean partners, the Valencia process provides a good framework for addressing water and security. After a workshop on environment and security in June 2012 in Amman, the OSCE, our office will organize, in cooperation with Monaco, a follow-up workshop in June this year that will focus also on water management. I hope these examples give you a good overview of the work of my office to foster sustainable transboundary water management. It is accomplished by the engagement of our field operations. Many have water projects among their second dimension activities. These include training events as well as support for the development of adequate legislation, research, and policy strategies. In conclusion, I would like to underline that the OSCE, as a regional security organization, is well placed and indeed has an important role to play in strengthening water cooperation, both through its political processes as well as through the concrete projects by my office and the field operations. These activities deliver tangible results for security and stability in transboundary river basins. We are ready to continue and enhance our activities with the support of the participating states. With this, I am looking forward to our debate and your views and suggestions. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Mr. Yildirim. 9 committee members have asked to speak. Each delegate will have the floor for a maximum of 4 minutes. Now I give the floor to Hajianis from Cyprus.
Vielen Dank, Frau Präsidentin. Water being a vital element of life and growth, but also often used as a tool of power, occupies a central place in effort towards global security. The Mediterranean region faces serious groundwater pressures, which pertain to supply needs for public water, as well as for highly competitive sectors, namely agriculture and tourism. Southern European countries' economies are particularly affected by adverse environmental conditions, more so at the impact of the economic crisis. Against a background of deep recession, Cyprus is making colossal efforts towards recovery and growth. Increasing focus has been placed on agriculture and rural development, sustainable management of natural resources, and the protection of the environment. In this context, the Ministry of Natural Resources is pursuing a sustainable water resource strategy based on 3 key priorities: the provision of safe, adequate, and reliable water supply for all users, addressing water scarcity and droughts, and the impacts of climatic change, harmonization with European legislation for the protection and rational management of water. Water development projects that have been implemented include water supply and irrigation projects, wastewater treatment plants, and large dams. Since dependence on rainfall persists and storage in dams only allows for short-term planning, attention has been turned to seawater desalination plants and the use of recycled water. Water-saving measures are also promoted. Moreover, Cyprus has developed synergies with third countries in the fields of energy and management of water resources. At this point, it is important to stress that the Republic of Cyprus exercises its sovereign energy rights within its exclusive economic zone in strict compliance with the Convention of the Law of the Sea. 2 days ago, a joint communique between President Anastasiadis and the Turkish Cypriot leader Eroglu was agreed, which opens the way for the resumption of fully fledged negotiations under the auspices of the UN Secretary General, aiming at a comprehensive settlement of the Cyprus problem and the reunification of the country in accordance with pertinent UN resolutions. On this occasion, we renew our appeal to those countries who are involved militarily in the conflict to fully engage in the process and avoid further threats, statements, or actions that escalate tensions in the region. Water scarcity in Africa and the Middle East region, combined with demographic pressures and poverty, further exacerbate discrepancies between North and South. Moreover, as a major source of existing and/or potential conflicts, water scarcity has a multiplying impact on the various security threats within and beyond this region. The OSCE has accomplished significant work by promoting transboundary synergies towards sound water management as an essential confidence-building tool. In the context of Helsinki Plus 40, cooperative security must acquire its full meaning also in this field. States must keep on track regarding their climate change related commitments towards a post-Kyoto universal agreement by 2015, ahead of the next UN Climatic Change Conference in Peru. And moreover, in efforts towards a comprehensive, inclusive and sustainable development and management of the world's limited water resource, the strong interdependence between water and energy efficiency and security must be further stressed and must be reflected in adequate social other policies. The OSCE must aim at its greater outreach to the southeastern Mediterranean region, also in terms of water management projects specific to the needs of one or more countries of the region. Moreover, in light of increasing instability in Arab Spring countries, there is need for enhanced South-South and North-South dialogue regarding highly controversial water management issues. The contribution of the OSCE Parliament Assembly and its member parliaments can and must be significant also in this field, in cooperation with other competent organizations, including the Parliamentary Assembly of the Union for the Mediterranean and the Parliamentary Assembly of the Mediterranean. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Ibrahimov from Azerbaijan.
Благодарю вас, уважаемый председатель, уважаемые дамы и господа. В связи с происходящими в мире глобальными климатическими изменениями и трудностями в обеспечении населения продовольствием, с каждым годом проблема рационального использования водных ресурсов приобретает все большую актуальность. Азербайджан расположен в аридной зоне, и основные водные артерии страны, реки Кура, Арас, Самур и десятки других имеют трансграничный статус. Моя страна еще с 1992 года присоединилась к Конвенции ООН об охране и использовании водных потоков, пересекающих границы и международных озер, принятой в Хельсинки. И в соответствии с ее требованиями проводит государственную политику, основанную на принципах международной водной юрисдикции. Мы имеем азербайджано-российское и азербайджано-грузинское соглашение о сотрудничестве по охране и рациональному использованию водных ресурсов, соответственно, реки Самур и Кура. Создана совместная ирано-азербайджанская комиссия по использованию водных и энергетических ресурсов приграничной реки Арас. Однако Армения, несмотря на то, что сотрудничество в области трансграничных водных ресурсов вносит значительный вклад в мирную жизнь региона, до сих пор не присоединилась к этой конвенции. Тем самым наш сосед уклоняется от основных принципов, которому должны руководствоваться в сторону конвенции, принцип предосторожности и принцип загрязнитель платит. К сожалению, Армения не только не присоединяется к этой конвенции, но и ее некоторые круги призывают к водному террору против Азербайджана. На армянском сайте Восконапад свои соображения по этому поводу изложили Левон Мелек Шахназарян и Ашот Хоятьян. По их мнению, 40–50% водных ресурсов Азербайджана формируются в Армении, и Армения имеет возможность лишить воды практически все западные районы и подорвать продовольственную безопасность Азербайджана, что вынудит население покинуть приграничный с Арменией район. Уже много лет с территории Армении по трансграничным рекам Арас, Ахчучай и другим на территории Азербайджана поступает речные воды с высокой степенью загрязненности. Из-за того, что загрязненность реки Охчушай, текущей с территории Армении, превысила критические показатели, эту реку называют мертвой. В водах этих рек количество загрязняющих веществ превышает допустимые санитарные нормы в десятки раз. В последнее время серьезное внимание привлекает тема продолжающегося разрушения Армении Сарсанского водохранилища на оккупированных территориях Азербайджана. Сарсанское водохранилище было построено в 1976 году на высоте высоте 726 метров выше уровня моря и является самым высоким в Азербайджане. С 1988 года водохранилище находится под контролем армянских вооруженных сил, и на объекте не проводятся текущие и профилактические ремонты. В результате состояние плотины неуклонно ухудшается. Технические сооружения и оборудование пришли в аварийное состояние. По этой причине Азербайджан резко осуждает незаконную блокаду Армении систем водоснабжения и орошения находящихся на оккупированных азербайджанских территориях. Мы призываем ОБСЕ серьезно относиться к этой проблеме и заставить Армению передать незаконный контроль армянских вооруженных сил над водохранилищем и всеми оросительными системами властям Азербайджана в соответствии с международными резолюциями. Спасибо за внимание.
Thank you. El Moufid from Morocco. Mr. El Moufid.
Je vous remercie, Madame la Présidente, Mesdames et Messieurs les membres. Le Royaume du Maroc, en dépit du succès des politiques de mobilisation de l'eau menées depuis plusieurs années par l'État, sous la l'égide de Sa Majesté le Roi du Maroc, qui n'a pas d'autre choix aujourd'hui que d'adapter et renouveler sa stratégie afin d'éviter à l'avenir des défaillances dans la satisfaction des besoins en eau du pays. Cette évolution était simplement nécessaire du fait de l'expansion démographique et économique du Maroc, est rendue impérieuse par les changements climatiques qui impactent de manière significative la disponibilité des ressources en eau. C'est ainsi qu'une nouvelle impulsion visant le renforcement de la politique de l'eau a été amorcée dans le cadre d'une nouvelle stratégie de l'eau, dans laquelle les réformes suivantes ont été proposées. Une administration de l'eau rénovée et renforcée, notamment grâce à l'intégration et la formation aux nouveaux métiers de l'eau. Ingénierie, financement, management, ressources humaines, démarches des bailleurs de fonds, ingénierie financière, communication. Un pilotage de secteur intégré et redynamisé, notamment grâce à des contrats-programmes entre les ministères, les régions et les usages de l'eau, des systèmes d'information et d'audit, améliorer un meilleur pilotage stratégique, un meilleur soutien de la part du système judiciaire et une meilleure régulation des rapports entre acteurs du secteur, utilisateurs et acteurs publics et privés. Des agences de bassin hydraulique et des instances participatives renforcées, notamment grâce au nouveau comité de bassin, ainsi que la clarification des missions et le renforcement des moyens. La mise en place d'incitations contrôlées et sanctions adaptées aux défis auxquels le Maroc doit faire face aujourd'hui et demain. Un financement qui optimise le recours aux sources disponibles, taxes et redevances de l'eau, subventions de l'État, financement des organismes internationaux, participation du secteur privé. Pour savoir la mise en place de la stratégie de la soulager l'effort financier de l'État. Merci beaucoup, Madame la Présidente.
Thank you. Mr. Kotlo Ak.
Water resources are getting scarce and more polluted in many parts of the world. OSCE's regions in one of those regions where water is also considered as a politically sensitive and strategic resources. There is certain perception that growing water scarcity, competing demand on water resources, pollution, and climate change can provoke the potential for conflict between repair states. We believe that water management includes data and information exchange on transboundary water basin. This basically bilateral issue for repair countries. The OSCE's activities should therefore be of a complementary nature to the repaying countries' bilateral efforts in this sense. The treaty on the Dniester River basin between Ukraine and Moldova and the agreement on bilateral cooperation between Azerbaijan and Georgia on the development of the Kura River basin constitute good examples. As these examples shows us, transboundary water resources can also present a real opportunity for collaboration rather than a source of conflict and a constraint for development if a genuine information exchange between the repairing countries can be established. This is an area on which Turkey has accumulated vast experience over the years. We are share our knowledge and experience with all interest circles at the relevant international and bilateral platforms. We are also, of course, similarly disposed with regard to the OSCE. Finally, I would like to mention to that the most current water and environmental issue the Turkish public has been discussing is recently the overuse of a lake's resources. This is the Sapanca Lakes, which is known in the world 100 kilometers away from Istanbul, and only water resources Sakarya cities with 500,000 population. The Sapanca Lakes is facing the risk of drying up due to the overdraining of some industrial plants and withholding of some commercial firms. The government is expected to take urgent measures on this issue. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you. Ms. Wechtel from French.
Merci Madame la Présidente, mes chers collègues. Comme il a été souligné ce matin à la session commune, la question de l'eau devrait monter en puissance dans notre organisation. Et la session d'Istanbul avait d'ailleurs invité cette organisation à prendre des mesures qui ont, me semble-t-il, commencé à être prises. Mais je voudrais que nous nous interrogions peut-être sur le caractère multidimensionnel du problème, en nous demandant sur quelle base nous devons agir, sur quelle prise de conscience. L'eau a une dimension diplomatique évidente, elle a été soulignée, mais elle a aussi une dimension économique, sociale, humaine, et qui est elle-même liée non seulement à ce que l'on nomme le développement durable, c'est-à-dire une croissance qui n'altère pas les qualités de l'environnement, mais elle est aussi liée à ce qu'on pourrait nommer le développement humain, qui n'est pas la même chose. L'accès à l'eau, en effet, est un facteur du développement de l'humanité vers un meilleur accès à l'ensemble des ressources qui font un niveau de vie convenable. D'ailleurs, l'eau est un indicateur de pauvreté au sens du sommet du millénaire. Et il fait l'objet de bilans sur ce plan, bilans internationaux. Alors, sur la première dimension, la dimension diplomatique, je n'insisterai pas parce qu'elle a été illustrée d'ailleurs par plusieurs interventions. Et, monsieur le coordinateur, vous avez fait le point sur des interventions de l'OSCE qui tentent à montrer que notre organisation agit en ce domaine. Ce n'est pas toujours facile dans toutes les zones de notre organisation, mais il semble qu'une volonté de résoudre un certain nombre de questions, si ce n'est de conflits, est apparente. Je reviens donc, et j'en termine par là d'ailleurs, sur la dimension qui touche à la fois au développement durable et au développement humain. Et je voudrais attirer l'attention sur un point. La France a toujours considéré que l'eau était, au même titre que l'air, un bien public mondial. C'est ce qu'elle plaide au sein des Nations Unies et il est normal qu'elle le plaide aussi au sein de notre organisation. Mais quelle est la portée de cette affirmation? Pour nous, cela signifie d'abord, bien sûr, qu'aucun État ne devrait se servir de cette ressource dans le but de faire pression sur un autre État. Ce serait donner quelquefois, dans certaines circonstances, une sorte de droit de vie ou de mort absolument inacceptable en droit international. Mais il y a à cela, à notre position sur l'eau comme bien public, une autre conséquence. Et cette conséquence, c'est la responsabilité qu'a chaque État de planifier et de gérer l'approvisionnement en eau, son retraitement, afin de faire face aux besoins prévisibles de sa population. Il faut peut-être aujourd'hui avancer dans le statut de l'eau sur le plan mondial. Je pense pour ma part qu'une action de l'OSCE auprès de l'ONU, ou bien une action conjointe avec l'ONU éventuellement, en vue de faire déclarer l'eau comme un bien public, ne pouvant faire l'objet d'aucune appropriation privée non contrôlée par les États, non contrôlée par la puissance publique, serait aujourd'hui un vrai progrès, car les États seraient alors devant leurs responsabilités propres. Je pense qu'une organisation régionale comme la nôtre, riche d'une vraie diversité, s'honorerait peut-être en mettant en avant une telle question. Je vous remercie.
Thank you. Mr. Ahmed Bekov from Kazakhstan.
Спасибо за предоставленную возможность выступить по данному вопросу. Уважаемые председатели, уважаемые коллеги, Республика Казахстан уделяет особое значение международному сотрудничеству в сфере использования и охраны водных ресурсов трансграничных рек, в том числе на пространстве ОБСЕ. Казахстан является активным сторонником решения всех существующих в сфере трансграничных водных ресурсов вопросов в соответствии с международно-правовыми нормами и нацелен на укрепление водного сотрудничества как на двусторонней, так и многосторонних основах. Казахстан на протяжении многих лет активно взаимодействует со всеми сопредельными странами в рамках многосторонних механизмов сотрудничества, а также двусторонних комиссий и рабочих группах. Является участницей ряда международных природоохранных конвенций и соглашений, так или иначе затрагивающих трансграничные водные вопросы. Присоединилась к Конвенции об оценке взаимодействия на окружающую среду в трансграничном контексте, Конвенции по охране и использованию трансграничных водотоков и международных озер, Конвенция о водно-болотных угодьях, имеющих международное значение главным образом как место обитания водоплавающих птиц. Налажено тесное взаимодействие по вопросам трансграничных водных ресурсов с такими международными организациями, как Европейская экономическая комиссия ООН, Региональный центр ООН по превентивной дипломатии для стран Центральной Азии, ОБСЕ, Всемирный банк, Евразийский банк развития. Несмотря на отсутствие общих границ, Казахстан осуществляет активное водное сотрудничество с Евросоюзом, Соединенными Штатами Америки и другими государствами. Хотелось бы особо отметить, что германское общество по международному сотрудничеству, швейцарское управление по развитию сотрудничества, Международное бюро по водным ресурсам, вопросам Франции, Агентство Соединенных Штатов Америки по международному развитию и другие государственные и неправительственные организации зарубежных стран оказывают консультационную донорскую помощь в реализации совместных проектов на территории Центральной Азии. Также выражаем признательность за постоянную помощь странам Центральной Азии и содействие в экологической реабилитации бассейна Аральского моря таким европейским странам, как Финляндия, Норвегия, Венгрия и другие. Особой благодарности заслуживает Федеративная Республика Германии за успешное взаимодействие в рамках водной инициативы для Центральной Азии или Берлинского процесса, реализуемых в рамках стратегии нового партнерства между Евросоюзом и странами Центральной Азии. Мы уверены, что наше тесное сотрудничество с Евросоюзом поможет ускорить процесс совершенствования систем и принципов управления и охраны водных ресурсов Центральной Азии. В прошлом году Международному фонду спасения Арала исполнилось 20 лет. По этому поводу, по инициативе Казахстана, председательствующего на тот момент фонде страны Центральной Азии, провели ряд важных мероприятий, международные конференции, круглые столы, симпозиумы, выезды в Приорале. В августе председательство перешло на очередной третий летний период к Узбекистану. В конце прошлого года Ташкент начал свою работу новый исполком фонда. Но, несмотря на передачу председательства, Казахстан продолжает активное участие в деятельности данного проекта, являющегося уникальным механизмом сотрудничества Центральной Азии по сбалансированному конструктивному решению насущных региональных водно-экологических проблем. В этой связи считаем, что ОБСЕ может сыграть определенную роль и использовать свой потенциал для выработки механизма политического сотрудничества в Центральной Азии по водным ресурсам, политике вода и энергосбережения, а также укрепить сотрудничество с ВМФСА по указанным вопросам. Благодарю за внимание. Спасибо.
Thank you. Mr. Peiro from France.
Merci, Madame la Présidente. Mes chers collègues, il y a quelques jours s'est tenu à Abu Dhabi le 2e sommet international de l'eau. Cette question prend une place croissante dans les conférences et discussions internationales. L'eau pourrait à terme devenir plus importante que le pétrole dans les enjeux internationaux. Malgré l'abondance d'eau sur notre planète, le risque de pénurie d'eau potable est bien réel. On compterait sur notre planète environ 1,4 milliard de kilomètres cubes d'eau, mais les ressources en eau douce ne représentent que 2,5% du total. Si l'on enlève les eaux gelées, la glace, il ne reste que 0,7% de cette eau qui serait propre à la consommation. Cette proportion est théoriquement suffisante, mais l'eau se fait de plus en plus rare. Bien sûr, en raison de l'accroissement de la population, mais aussi parce que la quantité d'eau nécessaire pour chaque habitant de la planète augmente 2 fois plus vite que l'accroissement de la population en raison de la modernisation, du développement agricole et de l'urbanisation. Certains experts prévoient qu'en 2030, la demande d'eau aura doublé par rapport à celle d'aujourd'hui. On estime que 500 mètres cubes par personne par an pourraient satisfaire à nos besoins. Cependant, la consommation d'eau par habitant varie selon les États. Un Américain consomme en moyenne 250 litres d'eau, un Européen de 100 à 200 litres, alors que dans certains pays du Sahel, la consommation quotidienne ne dépasse pas 10 litres par habitant. L'accès à l'eau est déjà un enjeu diplomatique. Elle est aujourd'hui un sujet de préoccupation, de tension, mais peut devenir demain une source de conflit. Toutefois, la sagesse des nations a su jusqu'ici empêcher que les tensions sur ce point ne deviennent des conflits armés. On recense dans la région de l'OSCE quelques 180 cours d'eau transfrontaliers. L'OSCE a déjà travaillé sur des projets concernant le bassin de la Save, affluent de la rive droite du Danube qui coule en Slovénie, Croatie, Bosnie et Serbie, de la Koura, qui traverse notamment la Géorgie et l'Azerbaïdjan, de l'Arax, frontière Iran-Azerbaïdjan notamment, par exemple. Sur cette question, nous le savons, elle est cruciale dans les pays d'Asie centrale. Les efforts menés par les bureaux de l'OSCE au Tadjikistan ou en Ouzbékistan sur cette question doivent être salués. Notre Assemblée a déjà compris à quel point l'eau allait devenir un enjeu central dans les années à venir. Nous avons adopté, lors de la dernière session plénière à Istanbul, une résolution invitant le prochain président, en exercice de l'Assemblée parlementaire de l'OSCE, à faire de la gestion de l'eau une priorité pour 2014. La deuxième dimension des actions de l'OSCE et de l'Assemblée parlementaire que nous représentons au sein de cette commission mériterait d'être encore renforcée. L'enjeu est trop grave, trop vital, pour ne pas en faire dès aujourd'hui un enjeu collectif. Je vous remercie. On se complète.
Thank you. Ficini from Monaco.
Merci Madame la Présidente. La principauté de Monaco, grâce notamment au rôle joué par le prince Albert II en tant que porte-parole en matière de protection des océans, de l'environnement et du développement durable, a toujours accordé une importance particulière à la gestion de l'eau, notamment en Méditerranée, et ce, de par sa position géographique. C'est donc dans cette ligne politique que notre nouvelle délégation souhaite s'impliquer dans les travaux de cette Assemblée et plus particulièrement au sein de cette commission. Dans le contexte actuel, marqué par la pénurie de l'eau pour les populations, la désertification en conséquence notamment du changement climatique, les conflits pour un meilleur accès à l'eau, il nous semble fondamental de souligner l'importance de la coopération dans ce domaine, à condition qu'elle soit accompagnée d'une généralisation de bonnes pratiques, notamment par des efforts des gouvernements pour la dépollution des mers et de toute source d'eau. Cependant, toutes ces mesures, que nous pourrions qualifier de politique régionale de l'OSCE, doivent passer également par une stratégie de communication pour sensibiliser les populations locales. La coopération pour une meilleure gestion de l'eau doit aussi être aussi bien locale que nationale. L'éducation est également un outil fondamental qui a un rôle essentiel à jouer en la matière. Nous savons tous qu'une pénurie d'eau est un frein au développement et une source de tension entre États et entre les populations locales. C'est donc aussi un défi sécuritaire. Que peut faire l'Assemblée parlementaire de l'OSCE pour qu'une politique puisse être mise en pratique pour un meilleur partage et préservation de cette ressource? Mon pays est impliqué au travers de projets de coopération menés dans ce domaine, tant par la Fondation Albert II que la coopération internationale, et ce, dans son environnement immédiat qui est la Méditerranée. Or, nous savons que l'eau potable notamment, est une ressource rare. D'ailleurs, la Méditerranée est considérée comme l'une des régions les plus pauvres en la matière, avec moins de 1000 mètres cubes d'eau par habitant et par an, avec un secteur agricole qui représente plus de 60% de la demande en eau. C'est cette pénurie et fragilité qui a conduit la Fondation du Prince Albert à imaginer et à activer des projets tels que des petites usines de dessalement qui pourraient s'appliquer à toutes les zones ayant des besoins en eau potable. Mais ce type de projet est coûteux et non applicable à toutes les situations qui relèvent bien souvent d'un concept plus large, la géopolitique de l'eau. C'est pourquoi je pense, Monsieur le coordinateur, que cette commission doit s'appliquer à trouver des solutions concrètes à ce problème de l'eau. Et en ce qui nous concerne, nous sommes prêts à vous apporter toute notre contribution, si vous le souhaitez. Je vous en remercie.
Thank you. Mr. Plakiatakis from Greece.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First of all, I would like to congratulate the rapporteur and all the distinguished speakers on the various topic. And first of all, let me inform you that as Greek, as the chairs the European presidency at the moment, has put certain goals in the presidency, such as the immigration that has been already mentioned. We have to acknowledge that Greece has a greater sea border area, so is suffering more than any other country in the European Union in terms with the immigration problem. Of course, in the agenda of the Greek agenda, we have put forward the growth and the how to tackle the unemployment, the bank union, and the greater synergy and cooperation that in terms we are enhancing the entrepreneurship and especially the medium and small size company and the startup companies. We believe that in order to tackle the unemployment, where in Greece is the major problem, we have to, of course, enhance the privatization and investment programs. Of course, privatization must lead to the reduction of public spending, to better services to the community, and of course to improve infrastructure and to make infrastructure more competitive. For example, we can transform ports in Greece to hub ports, mainly due to our greater geostrategic role. Also, I would like to inform that Greece, after 5 years of depression, this year we will manage to return to positive growth, and of course we are going to have a primarily surplus, and this will give us the opportunity to return back to the market. So mainly to the Greek people's sacrifices from one hand, and on the determination on the other hand of the Greek government, we have managed to change the climate. Of course, we have to do a lot more. Nevertheless, we are going to, at the moment, we're going to transform our economy from public focus to a more productive economy. But we are doing well, and we are more optimistic in the near future. Finally, with respect to the water management issue, our Ministry of Environment is focusing on the management of surface, ground, and territorial water. We do believe that, of course, is of main importance in terms of cross-border cooperation and enhancing the social economic stability. And, for example, we are in continuous collaboration and exchange of knowledge and experience with our borders with Bulgaria with respect to these flooding problems. So we do believe that in terms of the management of water, there must be a greater cooperation, especially with our borders. Thank you very much, Madam.
Thank you. Mr. Margaryan from Armenia.
Большое спасибо, госпожа председатель. Я бы хотел отметить очень важную вещь, которая относится и к предыдущих, и данному докладу. Я хотел бы поднять тот вопрос, что в докладах не было ничего о региональных сотрудничествах, потому что так как следующее заседание будет в Баку, это, я думаю, что очень хорошо, чтобы вот там и на месте увидеть, что такое отсутствие, полное отсутствие региональных отношений. И в экономической и экологической безопасности отсутствие регионального сотрудничества, оно не способствует безопасности и более наоборот. То же самое чувствуется в употреблении водных ресурсов. Только что наш коллега из Азербайджана делал, к сожалению, он делал доклад и ушел, что Армения загрязняет приграничные воды. Я думаю, что достаточно смотреть доклад со стороны инициативы НВСЕК 2007 года, когда тоже, в общем, после поднятия такого вопроса мы пригласили, и они проверили все эти реки, и водные ресурсы, они были чисты. И я думаю, что с такой солидной организацией, как ОБСЕ, не очень уместно сделать посредством copy-paste то же самое объявление и уходить. Мы готовы опять же проверить это, если это возможно, открытыми для международных организаций. И я хочу еще и отметить, что неоднократно со стороны Армении было предложено совместно управлять приграничными водными ресурсами, а со стороны Азербайджана было отказано. Я думаю, что неуместно обвинять Армению в блокаде, потому что настоящая блокада, блокада и путей сообщения и других отраслях со стороны Азербайджана выполняется все время. Спасибо.
Thank you. We have concluded the debate. I give the floor to Mr. Erdogan for comment. A short comment.
Madam Chair, distinguished parliamentarians, ladies and gentlemen, we carefully followed the statements and deliberations of Mr. Hajianis from Cyprus, Mr. Ibrahimov from Azerbaijan, Mr. Al-Mufik from Morocco, Mr. Kutlata from Turkey, Madame Liftou from France, Mr. Ahmet Bekov from Kazakhstan, Mr. Perrault from France, Mr. Ficini from Monaco, Plakiatakis from Greece, and Margarian from Armenia. We took notes, and your suggestions will help us to strengthen our efforts in the field of water management and water cooperation. Indeed, as OSCE, we cannot be active in a transboundary water conflict without the consent of all participating states in this regard. But we will do our best for capacity building, for confidence building in the future as till now. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I would like to thank the interpreter for their perfect work, and I thank all our speakers today for their contributions. We have had a most productive session. The meeting is now closed. Thank you.